Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Brought to you once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea. It's Election Day, and just a few short hours from now, Bill Jasper and Derek Cutlip will be joining me for real-time election analysis from across the country on what is one of the most historic days, if not the most historic day, for the United States in modern times. It is a day when a new dawn for America occurs. It is a day when Americans have begun to wake up and arise from their sleep, their slumber over the last 20 years. And so tonight, I think it's fitting that we all come together. So here at On Fire Ministries, 115 East Pacific, at 6 o'clock, the doors are going to open. 6:30, we're going to begin the program. We're going to go live at 7:30. We're going to be on Rumble Live if you can't make it down here, but also we're going to broadcast across the entire American Christian Network from 7:30 until about 9:30 this evening. Again, as we give you real-time election analysis and results, and we see the direction of the United States for the next decade. And really, I think for our posterity too, are we going to leave a republic? Are we going to leave liberty and freedom to our children? Here at Patriot Radio, we are now on Patriot TV as well. You can join us 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on the Patriot TV network, patriot.tv. And just so happy and honored to be on there. And for those of you that have never watched Patriot Radio before, we are here to give you all the information you need so that you know before anyone else what's really going on, and you and your family can be prepared for the times ahead, and indeed the times that are already upon us. You can follow us on Rumble and subscribe to us there, but you can also follow us on Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news all the time. In fact, we broke a news story just the other day that trended, well, at least on local Twitter, trended. We want to give you that kind of information, that level of access, so you don't have to scroll everywhere on the internet. You can come to Patriot Radio, especially for here in the Pacific Northwest, but far beyond as well. That brings us now to an encouraging word from Scripture today. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 31. The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. I know many of you have been working tirelessly to help restore the republic, to turn back the tide of communism, to turn back the tide that has come against our children. You were part of the rallies, Don't Mess with Our Kids. You were there in Washington, D.C. when we were on the Capitol Mall praying for the entire day. You were there when we did the multiple fasting and prayer services and the communion services all across this country. We have prepared our horse for battle, but the victory, the battle, belongs to the Lord. And regardless of what happens tonight, Jesus Christ is still on the throne. For all of us, I think this is a moment that tests character, it tests our mettle. Are we willing to persevere? And I believe from the Scripture, we see a parallel with Jezebel and Ahab being kicked out of leadership and Jehu coming in. But he didn't come in without a fight. And I suspect that election night is not going to answer all the questions, and that there is going to be a fight here for this country over the next few months. So tonight, it's not just voting and being done with it. Tonight, we all need to resolve as Americans and as Christians, as patriots, that we are going to see this through, that we are going to pray in reformation, as we like to say here at On Fire Ministries, that we are going to go the long haul to see this country turn back to God and turn back to its foundations in the Constitution. The purpose of government is supposed to be to promote good and punish evil, and to protect our God-given, unalienable, that means they can never be taken away, unalienable rights to life, liberty, property, and the ability to defend the same. And if we understand the purpose of government, it doesn't need to be very large, but it does require that all of us participate. So if you are a Christian watching tonight, understand that the largest voting bloc in America are Christians, that the largest voting bloc in America that doesn't vote are Christians, that the largest voting bloc in America that is not registered to vote are Christians, and the largest voting bloc that is registered to vote but still doesn't vote are Christians. If Christians stand up tonight in America, if Christians stand up tonight in America, we will see everything change. We will see righteousness come back into the land. We will see prosperity come back into the land. We will see life protected. And we will see liberty and freedom passed on to the next generation. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence briefing. First, polls are closing across the country, and here's a great map from Western Journal. Right now, polls have closed in a few places, particularly Kentucky. We've got some early results coming in from that I will get to here in probably half an hour. But also, the main area that we want to focus on, that brown area right there, and then also the pink area, that is what we're going to be focusing on tonight. So 10 p.m. tonight, we should know fully Eastern Standard Time what is going on across the country and have a good idea on who is going to be the next president. Yes, I know there are swing states. Yes, I know Pennsylvania is in a fight right now. But here is some early encouraging things that are happening across this nation right now. Reports from Oklahoma to Pennsylvania. Lines, and one of my friends said, like he has never seen before, as Americans are turning out in droves. Also, this year, it appears the Republican Party is prepared for the shenanigans that are happening. And so across the country, immediate lawsuits are being filed, and instances of people being turned away from the polls as observer are being reversed very, very quickly. And times are being extended for voters where there have been irregularities. So this is happening across the country right now. So tonight by about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, we should have a very good idea, based on these poll closing times, what is happening. And that brings us now to the globalist front. Interesting that this article comes up today from Technocracy News. Failure pending, central bank digital currency projects are foundering in Five Eyes nations. And if you don't know what the Five Eyes are, it's very important in understanding the whole globalist agenda and the attempt to create a surveillance state that is worldwide. So the United States, Great Britain, New Zealand, Australia, I want to just talk about those for a second, have reciprocal agreements regarding the spying on citizens. But what's also interesting, these countries come together, and as they come together for surveillance, it seems like they're coming together for other things like central bank digital currency. Canada and Australia, Canada being the fifth, shelved plans for retail CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, while the U.S. could soon become the first country to explicitly ban the central bank from issuing a central bank digital currency. So Canada and Australia now are shelving those plans where they were getting ready to launch them in 2025, central bank digital currency, and mainstream it. They are now shelving those plans. And the United States, if Trump is elected, very well will ban central bank digital currency.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the Patriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
So in the wake of that firing, of course, the left in Israel decides to begin protesting across Jerusalem. Israeli police began to arrest them as well and declared the demonstration to be unlawful. And here's one more indicator that's been just happening here over the last 24 hours. A U.S. Navy MQ-4C Triton surveillance drone is currently being flown over the Persian Gulf, taking a very close look at Iran. And in addition to that, Iraqi media is claiming that security measures and the state of alert at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, as well as bases in both Iraq and eastern Syria, has been increased as preparations continue for a possible confrontation with Iran. So if there is a strike by Iran against Israel tonight on election night, and Israel responds, that would implicate the U.S. bases in the region, and Iranian proxies are known to attack these U.S. bases when this happens. So it could be an expanded Middle East war during the election tonight. That brings us now to the Russia front. The first North Korean forces have likely officially engaged in combat against Ukrainian troops in the Kursk Oblast. So in addition to that, there have been reports of North Korean soldiers defecting to Ukraine. That has been very, very quiet in the reporting on that for obvious reasons. But it does look like that has happened. And it'll remain to be seen if these troops actually remain on the line or some more defect en masse to Ukraine, because for the first time in their lives, they may actually have freedom. Also, NATO kicked off its largest artillery drills in Finland on Russia's northern doorstep. And again, a flex on the Russian front. But also there's a flex that's going to be happening later tonight, which is directly aimed at deterring China. So on the one side, the United States kicking off drills with NATO in Finland. On the other side, the United States going to be doing a test tonight, and I'll get to that here in a minute. And that brings us now to the national front. And there is a whole bunch of news here on the national front. And then we're going to get to some early election results that are happening, some great news already happening. As I've been reporting already, across the country from Oklahoma to Pennsylvania, reports of long lines. One of my friends said he'd never seen anything like this before. And we are, and by the way, these these reports are being validated everywhere. Now, here in Washington State, we don't have the long lines because we vote by mail. And Washington State is served as a cautionary tale to the rest of the United States on why you shouldn't do mail-in voting. Today, it looks like, as of this morning, Polymarket has Trump winning 61.5% to Kamala Harris's 38.6%. And so this is not necessarily the truth, but it's very interesting, these markets, what they show. And they're typically very accurate. But what I find fascinating is that the money really follows where things are and then points to where they're going to be in the short term. So today I find it interesting that Trump media shares soar 14% as traders bet on a White House win, according to the New York Post. Also, Tesla is up 5%. And again, it looks like money is predicting a Trump victory. Also, Elon Musk just tweeted that he is headed to Mar-a-Lago to be with President Trump this evening. Now, here is where it gets interesting. I think these are indicators that the Marxists know they're about to lose, because we haven't seen this in the run-up to the election. In fact, Unity Front, Antifa, Socialist Rifle Association, John Brown Gun Club, some of these other Marxist organizations have really lost traction in the last 6 months. Unity Front trying to do some pro-Hamas protests. And as they tried to get people to come out to them, they found that there was very little interest. Money began drying up as well, as I think some of the rich liberal donors are understanding that the economy is not doing very well at all, and so they're protecting themselves first. So we've seen that there's been a shrinking, actually, unlike 2020. Well, that was until about 72 hours ago, when all of a sudden protests began popping up, and planned protests popping up all over social media, all over the country. It literally went from like 3 to 4 planned to like 30. Well, on the heels of that, a bunch of very interesting incidents today that I'm going to go through show that violence may actually be escalating right now, and it's aimed at Christians and patriots. First, the FBI reported that bomb threats to several polling stations across multiple states seem to be traced back to Russian email domains. Well, that's convenient, isn't it? But I find it interesting that these bomb threats are happening today. Why is the news reporting about these threats? Is it to keep people away from the polls? Well, no, I think they're probably trying to be accurate, but the threats are being made, certainly, to try to keep people away from the polls. Also, the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center in Washington, D.C. was shut down after a man smelling of fuel walked in carrying a torch and a flare gun. Well, that's fascinating. Why would it be today? U.S. Capitol Visitor Center in Washington, D.C. was shut down to the public following an incident in which this man smelling of fuel and carrying a torch and a flare gun was stopped during a screening process. The male suspect was then arrested by Capitol Police, and officials are currently investigating the incident. They say there's no public, but of course they're not saying any more details. Like, I don't know, was he carrying a communist flag? Was he saying something about Akbar? What was he doing? We're going to, I'm sure, find out more information in the following days, but we'll keep you up to date on these things. We're not going to let these stories die down here even after the election. That brings us to the Pacific Northwest. Antifa announced today that it plans on an election riot in Seattle in the same neighborhood they occupied for Chaz in 2020. Though people were shot and killed there and businesses and homes were attacked, militants responsible for the occupation weren't held accountable, according to Andy Ngo. And there were several mentions of this across these violent Marxist social media sites. And as we are reporting this even right now, more is coming in. Rose City, which is one of the centers of Antifa for the West Coast, said, quote, "If we want unrest, we need to make it," end quote. Portland Antifa blog post claims responsibility for attacks. Well, what attacks are they talking about? That's interesting. And they're urging, quote, "comrades to carry out violence during the election in furtherance of their goal of insurrection." I want to just take a step back for a second. Wait, they're posting online that they want insurrection. Compared to those that showed up on January 6, 2020, who were there as peaceful protesters who did not post anything online that they wanted to cause an insurrection. Let's read from Rose City Antifa's post. Quote, "As election night draws near, it seems likely many anarchists are content with sitting back and watching what unfolds. We cannot predict what will happen. Perhaps widespread riots, perhaps widespread nothing. But this should be even more reason to attack," end quote. Continues in this post and says, quote, "The Portland police have bragged about their preparedness to handle protests and have shown off their new riot squad and its fancy new toys. Although the police have made changes since 2020 and 2021, they are not all powerful. Our desire for freedom will always be stronger than their control." And then it says this, "If we want unrest, we need to make it. Attacks away from crowds all across the city can show that no matter who they elect, we are ungovernable." So what Antifa is advocating is that they attack across cities in disparate places, specific properties and people. This is what we actually predicted on Patriot Radio almost 6 months ago, that the left was ramping up to do targeted attacks against leaders, against influencers, and against specific properties, and do it in such a decentralized fashion that it would spread law enforcement too thin to be able to respond, instead of their coordinated, cohesive, large riots that they did in 2020. Here it is from their own words and their own post. Their post continues, quote, "Riots create opportunities for other people to experiment with attack. They subvert property, authority, and capital and unleash the boldest of desires, a desire for freedom and destruction." What an odd statement that is, but it's so interesting that from a Christian perspective, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. The quote continues, "But even after the riots end and everything goes back to how it was, they continue to live in a collective imaginary as a memory of what is possible, and this memory is the kindling for the fires to come." Then it says this, "At the same time, we have to think critically about the meaning of the night or two of rioting and what role we might play. How do these riots, ever momentary ruptures, fit into the goal of insurrection and generalized subversion?" Here they admit it. Now the question is, are the authorities going to do anything about that? But Antifa continues. More Portland Antifa accounts. So now you've got Seattle Antifa, Rose City Antifa, and now you've got Portland Antifa accounts are urging, quote, "comrades to carry out smaller scale attacks across the city while police are distracted downtown." So here it is again, decentralized attacks across the city. They plan to carry out political violence, regardless of who wins, in line with their goal of destruction, anarchy, and crimes by any means. So this is advocating violence regardless of who wins. But again, who is it targeted against? It's targeting Christians and patriots, even though they don't use those exact words. What they're trying to do, though, in their own words, is to foment an insurrection in the United States of America. And this is why Americans woken up, and they are going to the polls in droves right now, because this kind of stuff, these are the true enemies of this country. Some of it funded by our foreign adversaries, like China, as you've heard from some of the guests on Patriot Radio in the past. Question is, for all of us, what are we going to do about it? What are the sheriffs, the county prosecutors going to do about it? And are we going to actually hold these people accountable in the future? Are we going to see them locked up, put on trial? Or are we just going to let this go again like happened in 2020? That brings us to another incident. A Michigan man has been arrested and charged after threatening a mass shooting with an AR-15 of Christian conservatives if Trump wins the election today. He was arrested by the FBI this morning. And it's great to see, as one person quoted here, actually it was Laura Loomer, nice to see the FBI finally arrest a shooter instead of enabling them. Also, law enforcement are currently responding, as we went to broadcast here, to multiple bomb threats at 7 voting precincts in DeKalb County, Georgia. So I don't know where this is. I don't see an update for it right now. We'll just double check this here in a second. Doesn't look like there has been an update to that. But again, the point behind these threats is to keep people away from the polls. Also, Election Day chaos has hit key swing state county, specifically talking about Arizona. Voting machines were down in Apache County, Georgia. Looks like some of them might have gone back up, but this is where some of these lawsuits have come in, where the Republican Party has been suing for polls to stay open later if they've had voting machines go down, etc. And across the country have been very successful at doing that with a very quick turnaround. Also, from Wisconsin, stickers on 13 tabulators at Milwaukee Central Count are broken. I want to explain what this is. Okay, so on the side of a voting machine, these tabulators, there is a lock, and across where the crack is, where it opens up, they put a sticker to show that it hasn't been opened. It's basically a seal. 13 of those stickers were opened. They're going to start all over counting from the beginning now. And somebody compared this is kind of like that water pipe break in Georgia. But they are going to start recounting these ballots. And the election officials there said they would be counting until about 2 to 3 a.m. because of that. So we're going to get more on that situation as well soon. But again, incident after incident right now, this is why we need to return really clearly to in-person voting with ID, U.S. citizens, and we will have the results counted in one night, just like Florida, but it'll be all across the United States. Snipers and drones are also on standby near polling stations in Maricopa County, Arizona. And the reason they're there, obviously, is because there is violence that has been happening and some pushing and shoving in certain places because people are wearing garbage bags, or, which is kind of cute, or MAGA hats and T-shirts, and in the whole garbage bag thing, if you hadn't heard about that, is because this year we were not called deplorables, we were called garbage. We don't receive that. But what happened is that people began to actually accept, okay, fine. How about the garbage now take out the trash? I love it. I love the American spirit and resiliency. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that recount looks like it's going to be 30,000 absentee ballots are going to be. So that's a significant amount there.
Hey, Patriot TV fans, feel like there's nothing on the radio for like-minded, intelligent people like yourself? Well, great news. Now you can stream Patriot TV on TuneIn during your drive to or from work. Whether you're stuck in traffic or cruising down the highway, you can catch every conversation from your favorite show hosts right in your car. No more mindless jibber-jabber. Tune in 24/7 on the road, at the gym, or wherever you are. Download the free TuneIn app now on Apple, Android, or your computer and never miss a beat. Patriot TV, now on TuneIn.
Now we have it. Kingdom Crunch.
It's important to start breakfast off with a power-packed punch. You want a complete amino acid score, good protein. If you turn the label over and look at the back of the box, there is no added sugars in either one of these flavors, either peanut butter or acai bowl.
Peanut butter has 11 grams of high-quality protein. Acai bowl has 8. Peanut butter has 11 grams of carbohydrate, acai bowl 12, and both of them have good solid fat content at 6 grams. Very filling, very healthy.
You will be fueling yourself with high quality fuel, starting off the day right. You can even use Kingdom Crunch as a snack in the middle of the day if you just have a craving and you want to eat something that is good for you. It has a crunch and doesn't have a lot of calories.
There you go. Diabetic friendly, keto friendly, paleo friendly, Kingdom Crunch, and
Child friendly.
Also, a software malfunction wreaked havoc on voting in a Pennsylvania county. So the court, as a result, extended the poll hours by 2 hours. This was in Bedford County, according to the New York Post. And so, Cambria County Board of Election learned earlier this morning that a software malfunction in the county's electronic voting system prevented voters from scanning their ballots. And so, it looks like a win there. Laura Logan later reported that this extension to 10 p.m. there in Cambria County would make up for some of the long lines that they're seeing there as well. Now, by law in most places, in fact, all places that I know of, if you're in line, your vote still gets to be counted, even if they try to say that the polls are closed. The polls really aren't closed if you're standing in line at the poll closing time. Here's the key part of this. Some people might get frustrated. Some people might even get fatigued or tired and want to leave the lines. Stay in line and vote. Stay in line for your country. Stay in line for the next generation. Stay in line for the Constitution. Stay in line for your biblical worldview. Stay in line for your family. It's so important that everyone that is turning out right now not get dissuaded because they have to wait in line for longer than they thought. Stay in line and make sure that you vote. All right. Want to double check something here very quickly. Okay. Also, Attorney General Ken Paxton in Texas reports that the U.S. Department of Justice agreed last night not to enter Texas polling and central count locations or otherwise interfere with the administration of Texas elections, just hours after Attorney General Ken Paxton sued the DOJ over its announcement that it would send federal agents to, quote, monitor Texas elections. Very fascinating they're doing it in Texas, huh? Texans run Texas elections, and we will not be bullied by the Department of Justice. The DOJ knows it has no authority to monitor Texas elections and back down when Texas stood up for the rule of law. No federal agent will be permitted to interfere with Texas's free and fair elections. Great job down there. God bless Texas. Also, President Trump had a huge rally last night, but came out today and said that he vowed to immediately impose 25 to 75% tariffs on all goods from Mexico as punishment if the country does not help stop the flow of illegal immigration into the United States should he win the election. This is why around the world right now, it's not just Americans watching, but it's some of the countries closest to us, Canada and Mexico, is a Trump presidency means some accountability for the things that have been happening across our borders. Also, the Gateway pundit Dana Bash whines on CNN that Kamala did not have enough time to introduce herself. So they're already now making excuses for her loss. That's fascinating. And really, I think another indicator that the left has given up, has really, I think, understood that they're about to get trounced here, that it is really truly become too big to rig. Also, yesterday, we broke a news story here locally, 35,000 plus views, it looks like, on Twitter. The Administrative Office of the Courts database was hacked here in Washington State, statewide, for the first time. And it looks like they might still be even having problems today. I don't know if they've all been fixed yet, but I did receive an email that said that the ability to post certain case files was not up and running in the Washington State Bar Association. So there might still be some things happening today with this. But isn't it interesting that a cyber event did happen before the election? And isn't it interesting that it was something as significant as the Administrative Office of the Courts? Apparently, this was the first time ever that it had been hacked. Now, it could have been hacked before and they kept it quiet. I don't know. But the point is it happened, and it happened the day before the election. Seems that that's a relevant thing, especially here for Washington State. Also, the United States tonight, following the election, is reportedly going to conduct a test of a hypersonic nuclear-capable missile just hours after election polls close. That is a clear message to China. I would say Iran, too, not to do anything this evening and attack Israel. So you have NATO doing an exercise right on the Russian border in Finland, and then you also have the United States reportedly going to conduct a test of a hypersonic nuclear-capable missile tonight. Wow. Things are really definitely heating up. Now, I want to check some breaking news right now. Looks like the polls in Kentucky. Looks like Thomas Massie has won in Kentucky. Looks like as well that Republicans have flipped the West Virginia Senate seat. I'm going to pull that one up right now. So, not a lot, but it looks like that has actually happened, that Senate seat has been flipped in West Virginia. So this is very, very encouraging. The state of West Virginia has now been called for President Trump. Georgia, President Trump is leading 60% to 40% with 9% of the votes in. Wow, looks like also Florida, with 67% of the votes in, Trump is leading with 54%, 45%. So Jim Justice, this is confirmed now, Jim Justice wins and flips the U.S. Senate race in West Virginia. That is a gigantic win for the Republican Party. Looks like also the... I wish we could bring this image up right now. This is absolutely amazing. The Amish are turning out in unprecedented numbers to vote in Pennsylvania, and they're literally going with horse and buggy with Trump signs on the buggies to the polling places in Pennsylvania. Absolutely amazing. Also coming in right now, some preliminary votes out of Kentucky. Looks like President Trump is headed to win Kentucky. So I'm going to check this right now. Yeah, it looks like they're calling Kentucky right now as we're talking. Looks like they've also called Indiana, President Trump 63% to Harris 36%. So it looks like Indiana has been called for Trump. Looks like West Virginia is called for Trump. Kentucky has been called for Trump. We're going to take a look here very quickly at the Senate races as well. Right now, based on some things coming out at what Fox News is reporting, and I'm bouncing between different sites here. Looks like Vermont has been called for Harris. No surprise there, by the way. And Trump then now has 23 electoral votes, Harris with 3 electoral votes. In the Senate races, let's see, Indiana, West Virginia. Looks like right now, so far, and just so you understand, so Senate races, not all Senate races are up every year. So the number I'm about to give you is the number that is the kind of the starting number plus what's already been called right now. So as of right now, the Democrats have held 28 seats. They lost one today. The Republicans now have 40 seats for the Senate. As of right now, they flipped one, so there's a plus one as well. So that's the 38 held plus the 2 that I just talked about. So this is a very good sign as the polls begin to close and the preliminary numbers come in across the West. We're going to jump over to the House races. Looks like as of right now, 18 Republicans, 7 Democrats out of the 435. Most of what we're seeing right now is being counted and called in Florida because, of course, they're doing it right. And should be again, cautionary tale for all of us here in Washington State that we need to go back to poll voting in person with ID, U.S. citizens. And by the way, it's already law that U.S. citizens are the only ones that can vote. But these court challenges have been coming up where clearly non-citizens and illegal immigrants have been put on rolls and they're not being removed, or at least not being able to be removed by Election Day. That just doesn't make sense. In our country, citizenship is an important thing. It is a cherished thing. It is something that people should be attaining to, not pretending to be. And so as we see this, keep in mind that this is going to be one of the next pushes here in the next 2 years, the return to poll voting and return to making sure the person that's actually voting is the person actually voting. And, you know, we had 12 years ago here in Washington State and even here in Spokane, reports of a home getting 12 ballots. You go to that house and the house is boarded up, and yet all 12 of those ballots were voted in the election. So those are some things that are clearly suspect, but can be totally prevented by going to in-person poll voting. Now, what about soldiers overseas? Well, back in 2004, I was actually commanding the headquarters unit in the Army National Guard during the deployment, and then during election time, we were sent absentee ballots. We were able to vote them and then send them back. The problem was at that time, the Secretary of State delayed the sending of those ballots to us. And so there had to be a threat, because that was George Bush at that time, a threat to sue Washington State because the Republican Secretary of State at that time was not sending ballots to us. We finally did get our ballots. Most of those ballots voted for a guy you have heard of, Dino Rossi. Just the number of ballots from my unit alone, 250, would have been the difference in the election there with Dino Rossi. Interestingly enough, my vote didn't count in that election, I was told, and that should never happen to soldiers in a combat zone, Marines in a combat zone. Serving your country should never happen. But the way to properly do this and the way around some of these election irregularities that have been happening and some of the outright attempts to perpetrate fraud with non-citizens voting is to do in-person poll voting, ID, make sure their citizenship is there, that they are actually U.S. citizens, and then send the absentee ballots to people that actually need them, that should have them. People that are housebound, of course, 100%, but it should be the exception, not the rule.
Attention patriotic businesses. Do you want to see your sales skyrocket by selling your products or services to like-minded patriots? Well, if you're an advertiser who embodies the timeless principles of freedom, liberty, and patriotism, look no further than Patriot TV. Our viewers are responsive, economically active patriots who are committed to supporting businesses like yours that align with their values. For more information on advertising on America's new network of proud American businesses, email us at advertise@patriot.tv.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's filling up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
It looks like, just based on current projections, that only one more U.S. Senate seat needs to be flipped tonight to flip the U.S. Senate back to Republican. Looks like now, okay, this is very interesting. I just got this. I'm going to pull the map up right now. It looks like President Trump, it's been called that President Trump has won Miami-Dade County. Wow. That is gigantic. Now we're getting some election results coming in from Georgia. Let's see here very quickly. Trump winning in Georgia 62% to 38%. That's with only 14% of the votes counted there. The fact that he won Miami-Dade is gigantic. I mean, that just shows the seismic shift that is happening in this country right now. An update, media shares, or Trump media share price surges now over 22%. Again, money looking like it is betting on a Trump win. Polymarket is now giving Trump a 68% chance of winning the election, based on some of these numbers that are coming in right now. And boy, I wish we had this image of the Amish. That is an incredible thing as well. All right, I'm going to go down to a couple other races, and I want to talk about Washington State and North Idaho in preparation for tonight and what's going to be happening. Trump very, very handily winning Florida right now. Double check this. Yeah, very handily winning Florida. All right, so don't see any more breaking news on some. All right, here it is. So this just in, this is breaking news. Space Force will test launch an ICBM Minuteman III shortly after the election. It's going to be launched, it looks like, into the Pacific Ocean. Again, a clear message toward China. All right, let's talk a little bit about Washington State. Let's talk about North Idaho. Here in Washington State, there is a very critical race. Dan Newhouse versus Jared Sessler. Now, here's the point about this. Newhouse voted to impeach President Trump. Many people were so upset at that, they were drafting people to run left and right. And this may not be a pickup in the House, but it really is, because if you go to a great resource called the Freedom Index, you can see real time how candidates vote, not just at the national level, but also at the state level in Washington. So the Freedom Index is a very clear picture based on the Constitution of how your elected officials are voting in the state house, the state senate, how the governor's voting, how they're voting at the U.S. Senate level, the U.S. House level. This is a very objective way to see how people are voting. So at the state level, many people don't know how their state representatives or how their state senators vote. But you can, and we're going to post this up on Twitter right now so you can check it out. If you're turning your ballots in tonight, you can check out how people are voting at the state level. But at the federal level, Dan Newhouse does not vote according to the Constitution compared to somebody coming in that is going to vote according to the Constitution. That would be a pickup from that sense. So I wanted to take just a little bit of time there and talk about this, because tonight we're going to have with us Bill Jasper, and the New American Magazine is who puts out the Freedom Index. And when we look up Newhouse, I could just do this real time right now. His score is a 53% on the Freedom Index. In other words, he barely votes constitutional more often than not. So you could just look up anybody with this. And tonight, right now, we also have another big race in Washington where Joe Kent is running, and he is promoting, again, a constitutional platform. I can just search that district, all states. You could search it by state. It's a wonderful, wonderful way of making sure you hold your elected officials accountable and that you vote according to your biblical values. So as we're looking at this right now, I'm going to take Washington State for an example right now. I'm not going to talk about the majority of this state, but down in the 8th legislative district, we have most of these scores. Okay, I just want to, actually I do, I will, I'll just read through it. Maria Cantwell, a score of 12 on the Freedom Index. Susan Del Benny, a score of 13. Pramila Jayapal, a score of 19. Derek Kilmer, 12. Rick Larson, 15. Patty Murray, 11. Dan Newhouse, 53. Wow. Marie Perez, 23. Kim Schreier, 4%. Adam Smith, 18. And Marilyn Strickland, a 1. So when you look at these races from that perspective, you know this person is actually upholding their oath to protect and defend the Constitution, and this person really is not. So this one particular individual having a 21%, as Americans, we should be voting for people who uphold the Constitution, who uphold our biblical values if you're a Christian, and we have an objective standard from which we can do that. That is the Freedom Index. Again, Freedom Index for the national level, Freedom Index for Washington State. There's also Freedom Index for Idaho, so you can see those people there, how they're voting as well. So tonight, we're going to go through that, see how certain legislators have been voting, and then see whether they win this year or not based on that record, because I think a lot of Americans are saying enough is enough. We need to just completely clean house. We're tired of being lied to across the board. Now, we're going to jump back here and need to refresh this really quick. Looks like another state has been called. Donald Trump up to 32 electoral votes. Kamala Harris now still at 3. South Carolina has been called for President Trump. And looks like no real change with the U.S. Senate. Republicans now 21, Democrats at 7 for the House of Representatives. Looks like Florida is very, very close to being called here. And it looks like Florida is going to go for President Trump. I want to pull up one last quick analysis. Looks like also coming out, Georgia. Looks like some more votes are coming in, but Georgia's still 62-38. Looks like North Carolina is too early to even see where that is. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the latest on North Carolina. And then we're going to go ahead and conclude the broadcast for now. Yeah, North Carolina only 3% still in. So long way to go in the counting. Only 20% left, or 20% in for North Carolina. Ohio, only 14% in. So yeah, some of those still way too early to call. But Florida now 80% in. Trump still winning by 55%. It looks like Florida, in fact, is going to go for President Trump. So tonight, look forward to seeing you. May God bless you all. Keep up the fight.